In a previous video, I showed you how to use the pen tool to trace some basic shapes. It does take some practice to get to the point where you aren't using edit delete all the time. But remember, edit delete can be your friend. In this video, I'm going to attempt to trace my dino sketch. This was a little more challenging. To be honest, I think I probably left my inner child in the rearview mirror quite some time ago, to say the least. Here's my dino sketch, which I redid from the last time you saw it in my last Affinity designer video. The first thing you should notice is that the color palette is grayscale, if you look up here. I think that's probably because when I scanned the image onto the computer, I probably scanned it in as that. Don't be afraid, we don't have to rescan it, or else I didn't want to rescan it. All you have to do is to go up and say File, and then Document Setup, and then right here under Color, it shows that the color format is set at gray 16. So we want to get our color wheel back. So all we have to do is to do that, and then say OK, and we've got our color wheel back. I left it like that in case it happens to you, so you'll know what to do. Now, the first thing I want to do is to rename my Dino background, and I'm going to name him Dino. And the reason I'm doing that, I know that in past videos I've been pretty bad about naming my layers, but you're going to find in this we're going to have a whole heck of a lot of layers, and this one is the one that is going to be our go-to, and we have to know which one it is, so it's going to be easier that way. Now, what I want to do is to trace the dino by using the pen tool. The main tools that are going to be the most important are the pen tool, the node tool, and the Alt key. And the reason that the Alt key is going to be important is because that key will help you change directions when you're trying to trace all the way around. It's always better to be able to use as few nodes as possible and to be able to trace all the way around and close it, because if you don't close it, it's going to try to close itself. And the way it closes itself, you may not like. Now, in something this complicated, it's not like the circle that I did before, the triangle, where it's really easy to use very, very few nodes. We're going to have to use more nodes than you would probably like to, but I'm going to try as best I can. So we're going to need to go over here and select the pen tool right here. And then when we select the pen tool, the first thing I want to do is to go up here to stroke, because right now stroke is none, and if you keep it on that, you're not going to see anything, and then you're going to wonder what's going on. So we're going to do that, and we're going to make our stroke 2. So we're going to have 2 stroke, and our stroke is going to be in black. So that takes care of that. Okay, so I think I unselected it. Okay, so the pen tool, I'm going to start at his eyeball and try to trace it all the way around. And after I'm done, I'm going to tell you why I did it that way. So we start at his eyeball, and then sometimes you click and drag and sometimes you don't to form the handles. I've found that sometimes it's better not to do that, so I'm going to go and click another dot right here. So now we have our line, and we're going to pull until it fits this dino's head. Then we're going to click again, and we're going to make this fit the dino's head, and then we're going to turn around. See how my handle right there is turned around to follow the slope of the back? So we're going to do that, so it's going to follow the slope of the back. So it did that, so we've got dino head. I tried to click over here to see if I could get it all in one thing, but it didn't quite work out. So I decided, well, I'll just click in the middle of his back, and then we'll pull. And it's like pulling a little thread, actually, like that, and then we'll go over here, and we'll pull until it shapes. Now right here we have kind of an issue because we've got to change direction so that we're in line with the next piece that we're going to be tracing. So right now I'm pressing my Alt key, and then I'm going to move this up like that until it's there. Now don't let it go here because that's how long the line is going to be, and we don't want it to be that long. So you want to move it back until you get to this point, and then I'll let go of my mouse and let go of the Alt key and click it down. So now you've got your other line. Now the rest of this is easy because it's just like that triangle that we did in the last video. It's just, you just click it all the way around. So it's just the curvy parts that wind up being an issue. So now we get down here, and now we have another curvy part. Sometimes this causes me a problem and sometimes it doesn't. I tried to click over here to see if I could just pull it, but it didn't work out. So I decided I was trying to get the least number of nodes possible, but sometimes it's not possible. So I just decided to click here because right here it's a sharp turn anyway. So I click here and then you pull it to where you get a rounded curve, and then you go down here and it's not that bad. Curve it, turn it again, and then I'm going to go down here and pull it again, and then I'm going to go down here, pull that in, and then go around his foot, and then I'm going to stop right here. Okay, now we'll need to go in this direction, and so we'll click here, and then we'll have to pull this so that it fits, and then I'm going to press the Alt key again so that this will come around to here. Here's how long the stroke is going to be. So I'll release my mouse, release my Alt key, and click, and there is my stroke. So then I'm going to go over here, and then I'm going to click up here. Now don't worry if this isn't in a line. Remember, we've got our trusty node tool so that we can fix all that. Okay, so now I'm going to go down here and click right in the middle of his little mouth and pull until it's rounded. And then I'm going to click up here and see if we can. Now, sometimes this happens when you don't use the Alt key, and I didn't use the Alt key. See how screwed up that is? So I'm going to go undo modifying. Now, another way we can do this is to just fix it with the node tool, but I don't want to do that. Okay, so now we're back here again. So I'm going to pull that out and do what I should have done before and use the Alt key to turn it around. And so then I'm going to let it go, let that go, and click, and then I'll be able to fix that. Well, maybe not. Okay, so instead of doing that, I'll come back with my node tool and fix it. So now we have that. Now we have more handles that we can fool around with. So the handles are really what you want to fool around with. If you can't, you're going to have to go to the nodes. I do understand that. So we'll fix this, and then we will go back to our pen tool and click that and close that off. Okay, so now we have the first part of our outline. The next thing that we're going to do, and see over here, I need to point this out. The reason that I wanted to go all the way around and do it all in one fell swoop is because you only have one curve layer now, so you don't have to worry about all that. So the next thing I want to do is to fix all of the issues. I'm going to select my node tool, and I'm going to put a node there so we can pull this guy's little nose out and make it better. And then down here, I decided to make this, when I traced it around, I decided to make it square. Well, I don't want it that square. And then right here, I made it too square, so I fixed that. Generally, though, it looks okay. Now, I'm going to click out of this and click on the Dino, because what I had intended to do and didn't do is to do his eyes and his nose. But I'm not going to use the pen tool for that. I'm going to use the shapes down here for that, because if you can use the shapes to do anything, it's going to be a whole lot easier than using the pen tool. So I'll just click ellipse, and the fill is going to be white and the stroke is going to be black, so we're okay there. And then I'll hold down the shift so that I can make myself a little circle. Okay, and then let go of that. And then we can move our eyeball over there and make it bigger or smaller. Okay, and so we don't have to do this again. We can just click Control and then move it, and then we have a duplicate eyeball. Okay, so we have our two eyeballs. Now we want our nose. And so we are going to click the nose. So we have the nose, and for fill on the nose, I want that to be black. So I'm going to go over here and pick black and go here so I can move it and move it over, and then go Control and then move a copy over there, and then let the mouse go, and then let the Control key go. Okay, so now all we need are the eyeballs. So we're going to make sure that it's selected again, and we're going to make a little eyeball right there. Actually, we already have the eyeball. We need the iris and the pupil. And I think I'm going to zoom in on this one a little bit because that's pretty small. And then we're going to go Control and then move the eyeball over here. Let go of the mouse, let go of the key, and see how our eyeballs look. And I think that looks okay right now. Now see these lines that are showing through? Don't worry about that, because once we turn the Dino off, we won't have to worry about any of that. Okay, now what we want to do is to have the Dino selected, and then make sure that our node tool is selected, and then we're going to do a fill. So I'm going to go to Smart Swatches over here and pick a color and see if it will fill. Where did our fill go? Okay, right there. Oh, okay, we need to select the curves. Okay, before you do try to fill anything, you want your fill to be inside the curves. So you need to make sure that you have the curve layer selected. The way you know you have the right one selected is you will see all these nodes that pop up. So now we can go over here and select a color for our Dino, and that will fill him in. Now notice that his eyes and all that are covered up. Don't worry about that. That's just because that the layers are in the wrong order, and so that's covered up. So we're just going to move that around. So that's going to be our fill. I don't know, I guess that's okay. For our Dino, and I'm going to move the Dino layer down so that I can see the eyes and the nose and all that. Now, the next thing I'm going to work on are his legs. So I'm going to click off of my Dino, and I'm going to select the pen tool. We're starting a whole new thing here, and you'll see another curve thing show up. And then I'm going to go down here and click and click and click over here. This is sort of like clicking a box, and if you don't want it to look like a box, then after that, what you're going to do is you'll just use the node tool to adjust that. Okay, so we have that curve. See how it appeared over there? That's his leg. And we will select the node tool so that it will fill, and I'm going to fill it with some darker shade because those are his legs that are in the back, and so I want them to be a little bit darker. Okay, so now that's done. So I'm going to escape to make sure I'm out of everything, and you'll notice, see this box turns red. That means that we've gotten out of that pen tool. So I will just do that, click out, and make sure everything's good. Make sure our Dino is still selected because that's what we're tracing over. So you need to kind of keep track of what is being selected. The only thing I can tell you is if something is not working for you, check what layer you have selected, and that should solve a plethora of problems. So now we're going to click the pen tool again, and we're going to go down like this, and I think I'm going to pull that over a little bit, and over, and pull that over a little bit so it gets rounded, and then up here. And so now we have his leg. That turned out a lot better than this one. I won't have to do as much on it. Now, in order to fill it, make sure that the leg is selected. That's what this is, even though it says curve. Click on the node tool because that's the only way it's going to fill. And try to remember what we picked. Well, we didn't pick that one. So let's go over here. Okay, that's close. All we need is for it to look like there are some shadows. Alrighty, now, we're closer to being done than you might think. Okay, so all this is okay, and let's do some, well, let's finish first. Now, there are some lines that were under here. I don't know if you remember, but we're going to have to do those. So what we're going to do is to click on this curve, and this is the beauty of it being all in one curve and it being filled, is since it's only named curve, you can tell that this is the Dino part. We want that selected. In order to be able to find the curves that we overcolored, I'm going to turn down my opacity until these are now there. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is to click on the pen tool and, okay, go down, well, make sure your Dino is selected first or you're going to get some really weird curves. Click on the pen tool, then make sure your Dino is selected because remember that's what we're always writing on. Then the first one, it doesn't really matter what we do first. I'll just do this one up here. So I'm going to click here and click here and then pull until it matches, pull the thread until it matches, and there we go. And then you can escape out of it and we have ourselves a new curve. There it is. And then we're going to try to fill that. So I'm going to just pick a color and I'll pick that color to fill his neck with. Now, notice that the color I picked, this yellow, isn't exactly the color here, and that's because it's overlaying the original color, but that's okay in this case. A lot of times it's not okay. So I'll escape out of that. Then I will select my pen tool again, make sure my Dino is selected, and pen tool, Dino selected, and then I am going to click there, and pull so that matches. And then I'm going to click over here to close it. And so we can now maneuver it around so that we get what we need to get. Okay, so let's take our node tool and fiddle with the handles so that we can get this back the way it's supposed to look. Remember to adjust the handles whenever you can, not the nodes. Now, I know it's not going to be possible to go with that all the time, but that's just kind of what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, So we will fiddle with the handles. We'll crunch that down. And now we have ourselves his tummy. And we're going to come up here and click on a color. And we have that. Okay. So now we're almost there. All we have to do is this piece right here. So we'll click on our pen tool, and then we'll click, this is actually the easiest one, click here and pull until it matches, and then let it go, and then go back up here. And so we're done. Now all we have to do is to see our semi-finished project. So I have to go up and find the Dino. There we go. So that I can turn him back to 100% in opacity and check to make sure everything is in the right place. This Dino right here should be down here. Whoops, not there. Whoops. There we go. Remember, if you find that something is covered up, it's probably because your layer is in the wrong place. The way I did it, the original Dino drawing, which is right here, should be on the bottom, and the filled, traced Dino should be next, and then everything else is going to be stacked on top. So, let's take a look at our nodes. I really don't see any huge, well, yes I do, any huge problems. I'm not liking that too much, so we're going to fix that and just make it a little bit more roundy like that, because he really doesn't have square feet. So we'll do that and click out of that. I'm going to leave that point right there. This was curved originally, but I really don't mind that it looks like that. And this actually is supposed to have a dent in it, but I didn't draw it like that. So this is a lucky accident. This is really an error that wound up being an accident. So once we have our Dino the way we want it to look, and I do, then what we can do is to come over here on the Dino sketch and turn it off. And that's going to get rid of the lines that are underneath, and that's what you have. Now, I hadn't planned on doing this before, but I sort of decided at the last minute that I thought this would be kind of cute by putting in a background and a color, because see, right now we have a Dino that's drawn on a transparent background because that's how the settings are. So what I'm going to do is go out here and go File and Place, and I found this set of plants. So I'm going to open that and then put the plants on here and get it the way I want, and then move them around, okay, and make sure that the plants are up here because that's what they're supposed to be. Okay, somehow this our plants should be on top of the Dino, but somehow we have this. We're going to have to move that. Oh, I know what I forgot to do. Okay, let's get out of here. We're going to undo all this because there is something giant I forgot to do. And that is, once I am done and I have my Dino turned off, I need to group all these into one group. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to click on all of them and group them all together until we have one thing. Now originally I wasn't going to group these until I started moving things around, and then pieces of my Dino started moving independently of each other. And then I thought, oh, it might be a good idea to group them together. Well, another reason it's a good idea to group them together is you don't have to figure out what layer is in the wrong place, because now it's all in one layer. So I'm going to leave that in the video in case you do that, and so you'll know what you need to do. Okay, so now what we can do is we can go back up and go File and Place, grab my plants, open my plants up, and put them on the Dino. The Dino is supposed to be behind the plants, kind of walking out. So there's the plants. So we have that. And the layers are in the correct, we've got the grouped layers, and then we've got the flowers on top. So now all I'm going to do to finish this up is to click on that, click on the rectangle tool, and the fill, I want it to be white, and the stroke, I want it to be no stroke. I don't want any stroke on this. So now we're going to get a white fill layer on top, and we'll move the fill layer down. Okay, so that's right here. Okay, so after all that moving around, we have our layers where they're supposed to be, with the plants on top, the group Dino, and then the rectangle. Now I want to check and make sure we don't have any transparent pieces sticking out. So I'll have to make that a little bit bigger. Okay, so now what we can do with the rectangle, and make sure the rectangle is selected, is to fill it with a color. And I'm going to just pick one. Ooh, that's terrible. So I'm going to pick one, and then I'm going to go to the color wheel. That's always easier. So that's more along the lines of what I was looking for. So around that color will give us the color that I'm looking for. So now we have everything done. We have our trace Dino walking out behind these plants, and then we have a nice background on there. So I know that was a bit much. If you're going to try this, I try to leave in, sometimes I edit out the mistakes, but I try to leave in a lot of the mistakes, like the grayscale scan and forgetting to group the Dino and all that stuff, so that you can, if this happens to you, you can kind of see that. That always helps. So there. Woo! I can't tell you how many times I did this Dino. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this, and a shout out to Mrs. Boley for instruction on drawing this Dino. Remember, she's not responsible for the lack of talent sitting between the chair and the keyboard right now. Remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be notified when my next video drops. And if you want to support my channel, buy me a coffee. The link is in the description of the video and also in my channel. I also post some things there every once in a while.